Hello, and welcome to Senior Artist Trucks. I'm Angel Mercado. If perspective is keeping you from doing landscape scenes, or maybe you think perspective only in a street scene, but you want to see how we can apply one point perspective to something else, this is the video for you. Today, we're going to do a river scene, but on the river scene, also, we're going to try to develop our artistic eye. I try, when I sketch, when I paint, I always have that in the back of my mind. Find poetry. When I say poetry, I mean find something or render whatever scene is in front of you in such a way that it's going to have some kind of meaning. Not just a few lines, since it's perspective, we feel like we need to bring the ruler. There's no need for rulers. Just developing your artistic eye. Remember, we're human beings, we're not machines, we're not computers, we're not a camera. So that is what separates us, right now. So be aware of that. When you're doing a rendering like this, just think about, does this sing to me? How can I show a little more emotion or feeling in my work? That's what I want to show you today with this one river scene. So I did this river scene in Indiana many years ago. It's a Mississinawa River and go through east central Indiana. And it was an afternoon scene. I was looking really for a sketch for an oil painting, but this was supposed to be a thumbnail. But from thumbnail, I went to a sketch. That happens often to me because I love to sketch. So sometimes if I like something, I just keep on going until if I find the answer before then, I'll just stop and go on and do something else. Okay, so this is the time then it's playtime for you. That's how you should see it. Forget about being correct, precise, accurate. No. Here's where when we look at the drawing, when we see ourselves that we're going to play, we're going to have more organic shapes, okay? That is when we really start adding some kind of feeling into our work. So let's go to the board, but before, give me a like, subscribe, and ring that little bell. That way you know when I have new videos published. Practice, practice. That's how you're going to get good at this. And you'll see how easy it will come to you before you know it. So now, let's go to the drawing board. Okay, so today we're going to draw a river scene in one-point perspective. As always, I kind of like to start my sketch with a little frame. That way we have an idea about where the image is going to go. Okay, so this is our plane. And now we're going to remember, I always like to start from my bigger shapes. So here I see one shape right here, there, and I see this shape as being coming over here, and this shape kind of comes like this, and there. And here we're going to have these little banks or little islands, they form along the side of the river, so we're going to put a little indication of them, so we know where they're at. Maybe we can come up one is all the way here, there. So that way, one-point perspective, because everything is going this way, you see, kind of everything comes from here. So that is why we can call this a one-point perspective. We have this flat front of this shape, and everything else, goes inwards. So we are going to be ready to start adding tone to the paper. So I'm adding charcoal. I'm going to add charcoal to the page. Best way to do it is just lay the side of the stick and add the charcoal all over. I know I'm going to lose most of the drawing, but you know how easy the drawing was, so it's not like we're missing a lot. And pretty much I'm going to go all over. The main thing here is to add tone to the paper. That way we have something to work with. It's almost like adding paint to a canvas. We're adding tone to this paper. And I always seen this as almost like painting more than sketching sometimes, really. Because we can move this around and it's pretty nice. It's going to be darker here. Alright. So now with a clean tissue, I'm just going to fold the paper like this, and I'm going to go over the whole area. See how fast we can add tone to paper. When you're using pencils, this step will take it will take a while to get this done. Whereas here we can do it just so fast. There. There we go. So pretty much we have added the tone to the paper. So now we're going to lift a little bit of the charcoal in certain areas where we want the light to be. So now I get my kneaded eraser. Remember my eraser? And with this, we're going to start shaping this into what we're after. Like for instance, here goes in there. And what I'm doing here, I'm squinting my eyes just to see where the main shapes are. When you squint your eyes, it makes it a lot easier to see your shapes. And of course, see values better. And what I'm doing every once in a while, you know, I bend this over that way I can have a clean tip again, because it will get saturated with charcoal if you don't do this. So we have there. You see how fast we can start creating the illusion of something being there. That is why I love charcoal, because it's so expressive. It sure doesn't take much for us to say what we want to say. Right here we have pretty much, it's going to be the sky reflecting on the water, so it's going to be lighter than in most places. I'm still changing the the tip of the eraser just to keep it nice and clean. This will be one of the brightest areas on the paper, because here's where the sky is reflecting straight into the paper without too many objects, blocking it. So that's what's going to be there. Here we have some light bushes. I'm going to put a light bush there. Happen to be right in the middle. I don't like that, so I'm going to move it a little bit to this side. So it's going to be right there, not so much in the front. And here we're going to have some, tree trunks, tree limbs of all different sizes, all different values, because some of them are in the interior, some of them are going to be a little bit brighter than others. It's a beautiful, there are some beautiful trees along this river bank. Here we have more. In the background we're going to see some indications, and you see how easy you can do this. You can make it very thin, we can make very broad lines. It just really is up to our imagination what we can do with this. And then on this you just take your time, just don't be in such a hurry, because you want to enjoy the process. So if you see me sketching at a certain speed and you think that's the speed to sketch, well, I'm doing I cannot take my time like I always do, like take my time when I sketch, because I'm doing a video, so I had to move along. Otherwise this video will end up being way too long and then you might get too bored. So I'm kind of working a little bit against time, which is kind of good because it has helped me now to really work faster than I used to. I don't spend so much time like I used to spend going over things over and over and over. Here I'm just putting branches that, from different trees that come in different directions. When you're in the woods, you're going to see all kinds of limbs and branches going all over the place. So you can see how we pretty much have the drawing that we need to have done. It's pretty much done here. Here we're going to do dots. When you do dots, that means maybe just a piece of shrub is getting, a little bit of light. And the best way to make them is just by kind of dabbing the, the eraser. And of course, like always, change the tip to a cleaner tip. And here also we have several bright spots, of course, because here in the sun is kind of like coming from this direction like this, so you're going to see a lot brighter areas on this side. So you can see mostly just to sketch with the eraser. That's what I'm talking about when I say I use the eraser more to draw with than to erase with, because this is kind of stuff I like to do. And for this you just don't need to erase much. That's why I say when it's playtime, think about this as being playtime. Think about a kid, with a toy and just enjoying it. That is almost the way I feel when I'm doing this. And here we're going to start creating some lighter passages. There's a big mass of, on the left is a big mass of, pretty dark trees, because there are several trees in there, so you're not going to see much light coming through there. Just at the edges, you're going to see a little bit of that. Same thing here. I'm going to pretty much when I'm leaving dark is the stuff that's in the middle ground, and this light stuff is in the background, of course. Okay, so now I'm going to keep on bringing some of these branches, tree trunks in the background. And now I'm going to go back to my fine charcoal, and we're going to reintroduce the darker tones. And here I'm going to go kind of like in a circular motion. That way we can have more like, resemble more like the leaves in a tree. And as I'm doing this, also I'm squinting my eyes so I can see my values better. And all of this here is going to be darker, of course, than the outside area, because very little sun is going into this area, so it's going to be mostly darker. And as you can see, I'm doing it in a very random fashion. I'm not going into I don't want any patterns here, because then it will not look right if I do that. So I try to move around the page and squint my eyes, of course, and just create this very organic shapes. Where I created the light, you know, here in this shrub in the foreground, I'm going to go around some of these spots because I want to keep some of them under here. This one to be darker, and of course this one's going to have reflections in the water, so it's going to be darker up to about there. And then here we're going to start defining this area a little bit more. Like this, comes up like this. This time I'm putting very little pressure on the charcoal. I don't want it too dark. So now that we have that, I can go with my finger over some of this stuff. I love to work with my fingers in charcoal. I think that's a better job than any other tool out there. When it comes to blending, we just blend with the finger softly. We can vary the pressure we are applying with the finger. You know, of course, every once in a while I clean my fingers, you know, on the charcoal and the tissue just to get rid of the excess charcoal in my fingers. That way I'm not going to be introducing them back into the areas where I don't want it. So now I'm going to go back to my eraser. And remember, what we're trying to do here, we're trying to find some kind of poetry to all of this. You know, let's see if we can find. Sometimes success hits, sometimes, you know, it takes a little bit longer to find it, but usually we can do it if we are patient. The key to this here is to experiment. You know, just try to play with your eraser as much as you can. See if you can do certain, you know, markers that you want to do. See if you can go darker or lighter in some areas as you want to, as you need to. These are great ways to get to know how to use your eraser. Tapping, 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 just to create the illusion of grasses and create texture mostly. And you see, remember, this is moving water, so you're not going to have a clean, you know, space, just pure white. You're going to see marks of the, you know, indications that the water is moving. It's moving slow, but it's moving. I go with my finger, trying to create the illusion of depth, so it's getting softer. And it gets a little bit darker as it comes to the foreground. These reefs are so beautiful in the summer, fall, because the color of the vegetation changes, the trees, they change into different colors, making it beautiful. Here I'm going to make some of this a little bit thicker, some of these tree trunks, and all I'm doing is just very gentle. I'm going up and down with the eraser. I'm not really putting a lot of pressure. These are closer to us, but they're not brighter than this. If you notice this here, these are very bright because these are being hit, you know, by. So this is how easy you can create a one-point perspective drawing or sketch, and at the same time try to make it more like, you know, of a piece of art than just a simple sketch. Just finding the poetry, I call it. For as long as I can see this, as long as I can find this poetry, I'm good. Whatever I do, that's my goal. There. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get the eraser and clean up the edges a little bit. This is not necessary, but I always like to do, you know, you have to get used to some sort of a presentation. Even though I don't have any straight lines, it doesn't have to be that way. I like the loose style, I don't like the tight renderings. For some people it's okay, but you know, it's just not for me. There, across. I know this edge doesn't look very straight, it's because of the angle of the camera, but believe me, it's straight. Here I have a hard tip eraser, just to make a few, you know, indications to grasses growing along here. Here and there.